Hey, dog mums, welcome back to the Natural Dog Mum podcast. We're here today to talk about something that is pretty fundamental when it comes to your dog's health, but a lot of people are still trying to get their head around it. I mean, who would have ever thought that a dog with itchy skin and itchy ears can actually have something going on with their tummy? Not the instant leap that you would think of. Anyway, we're going to unlock that and have a look at the whats and the hows and the whys and what you need to know. Today we're here with Eden Bennett, who is a canine nutritionist, and she also has a gorgeous brick and mortar pet shop in Coffs Harbour called Synology. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yep.
Thank you for coming to chat with us.
No, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming to organise this one.
Absolutely. We had tech issues last time, didn't we?
We did, yes, yeah. But we've got it all sorted.
Yeah. Well, we got there eventually. That's all that counts.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I wanted to start right back at the basics. There's so much information out there. I can imagine particularly for new dog owners or someone who hasn't had a dog in a while, it can be very confusing. So let's just start right back with the basics. What is the gut microbiome and why do we need to know this?
Yeah, perfect place to start there. So we have one, our dogs have one. The gut microbiome is what we refer to as the community of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and some other tiny organisms that live inside the dog's intestines. So we used to think of these microbes simply that they help digest food, but now recent science, and there's a huge emerging field of study in this area, knows that they influence nearly every aspect of our health and our dog's health. So we know that the microbiome now helps to digest fiber and it breaks it down into beneficial compounds. It produces vitamins. It protects the body against harmful bacteria. It actually educates the immune system, teaching it what it needs to do and how it needs to work, regulates inflammation, maintains the integrity of the gut lining, which is really important, and I think we'll talk about that soon. And it communicates with the brain. What I like to share with my customers, just to emphasize the importance of taking care of this, is about 70% of your dog's immune system tissue is associated with the gastrointestinal tract and is directly affected by the health of that microbiome population.
That's a really important statistic.
Yeah.
If you remember nothing else from this conversation, 70% of your dog's immune system resides in the gut. So hugely important thing to really be aware of what's happening, be monitoring for any potential symptoms and making sure that as much as possible you're keeping things healthy and balanced.
Absolutely.
What are some of the symptoms? We mentioned itchy skin, but there are a lot of other symptoms that can happen with our dogs that can often be a sign that there's an imbalance in the gut, but not instantly the first thing that jumps to mind?
Yeah, so one of the primary complaints I see in the shop that people come and talk to me about is my dog's licking their paws, what can I put on it? Or my dog's got a rash on its belly, what can I put on it? My dog has a recurring ear infection, what can I clean it out with? These are not issues that you would typically get very effective results for when you treat them topically. So these are the things that I would think are a red flag for there's something going wrong in the gut. So you're looking at really common things that we see: itchy skin, recurring chronic ear infections, excessive paw licking, recurrent yeast infections, and that really cheesy smell that dogs get. Bad breath, particularly in the absence of bad dental health. So if the dog's teeth are okay, but the breath is foul, that's a huge red flag that there's something going on in the gut. You have a dog that has food intolerances or seasonal allergies. And while some dogs do have genuine allergies, as we discussed before, when the immune system is housed in the gut, you can at least mitigate or alleviate the severity of some of those symptoms by taking care of your dog's microbiome. You might see anal gland problems, poor, really dull, dry coat, or excessive shedding, a bit of inflammatory bowel disease, frequent antibiotic use because your dog's got recurring infections. You'll see slow healing of wounds, excess gas, soft stools, and then on the flip side, constipation. And a big one that not many people put down to the gut is anxiety.
That's a huge one, actually. It seems to be an area where a lot of scientific research is emerging, and thankfully so, because there is absolutely a direct link between what you're feeding and the state of the gut and the immune system and your dog's mood, how calm, how settled they feel, or on the flip side, how reactive they might be. And it's not always necessarily they're being reactive to the thing that's in front of them. It could be being made worse because their gut's just not right.
Exactly right. And you can see this in real time in children. When you feed a child a highly processed or high sugar diet, the differences in behavior and concentration in a child that's fed low glycemic index foods that nurture that microbiome. There is an obvious behavioral difference between those two food diet groups. It's the same for our dogs.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that's actually a great analogy to use. I find when I'm talking to customers, it can be a little challenging to try and explain these things to them. And talking about why feeding fresh is important, etc. When I mention things like, would you feed your child McDonald's 7 days a week? Or would you let your child, have lollies 7 days a week? Something clicks.
Yeah.
They seem to get it.
Yeah. Everyone has seen the child that's fed a whole bunch of lollies and maybe some soft drink at a party, and the high that they go on, and then the
And they're climbing the
humongous crash
wall.
afterwards. Yeah. It's exactly the same when we feed our dogs an abundance of sugar. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the other connections that people often don't make. People think, oh no, you'd never give a dog sugar, but indirectly they are. I mean, a lot of these kibble-based diets that, are full of carbohydrates, what happens when it gets inside that dog or that child's body? It's converted to sugar.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Unavoidably.
Interesting stuff. Now, another term that many people, I'm sure, are seeing out and about or hearing is leaky gut.
Yes.
But I don't think many people really understand what that is or why that occurs. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so before I get into leaky gut, I thought it'd be good to just define the term dysbiosis, just because I might use this word a few times during the course of this podcast. So when we break down the word, any kind of medical term, break it down to its prefix and its suffix, and you get the definition. So you've got dys meaning bad, impaired, or imbalanced, and bio meaning life. So the term itself, when it's referring to the gut microbiome, means impaired or imbalanced life. So what that's referring to when it comes to the microbiome is an imbalance between beneficial and non-beneficial bacteria. Moving on to leaky gut, that's the colloquial term for a state of, it's called increased intestinal permeability. So this is not a medical condition on its own. It describes a compromised gut barrier in which proteins called tight junctions fail to prevent the passage of partially digested proteins, bacteria, and they pass into the bloodstream. So when the immune system notices this, we see it become way more active. Dysbiosis can be one cause of increased intestinal permeability, but it's a term that's often used in that conversation and can be a little bit confusing for people. So that's why I like to clear that up.
Absolutely. So what are some of the things that commonly can cause leaky gut?
Yes. So we have quite a few. So I like to break it down into 4 different categories. So you've got diet, antibiotics, stress, and environmental factors. But to go a little bit further into that, when it comes to diet, you're looking at highly processed foods, ultra low fiber diets, a lack of plant diversity, really poor ingredient quality, way too many treats. I see a lot of people, particularly people with fussy dogs, that like schmackos or little store-bought packaged treats, and they use those as a meal alternative. A lot of those ingredients, or a lot of those treats, do have ingredients as blatant as sugar on the label. Those are not good for your dog's gut health. And low phytonutrient. So we're looking at dogs that don't get diversity of really deeply colorful fruits and vegetables, which have, as I just mentioned, phytonutrients. So moving on to the next category, I think it's really important to mention that antibiotics will save your dog's life when they need to. They absolutely have their place, but they will reduce harmful bacteria and they can also reduce beneficial species at the same time. So if you don't manage the administration of antibiotics with useful probiotics, even sometimes at the same time or immediately following, your dog's recovery from that can take weeks or months, and it can sometimes be extremely detrimental to their long-term health. Third category, stress. A lot of people don't realize stress will change a dog's gut motility, their gut permeability. It will impact their immune system and the microbial population. Huge stresses that people need to consider with their dog: moving house, boarding their dog in kennels, massive, introducing new babies into the home environment, chronic pain, even when it can go, dogs are very, very good at hiding pain. So you just need to be quite aware that arthritic dogs and stuff like that are particularly sensitive to chronic stress, chronic anxiety, and a lack of sleep. So without a safe sleeping environment that they feel comfortable in, that's a huge contributor to it as well. And then we'll move on to environmental factors. It's just pesticide exposure, repeated administration of medications, poor diet, Low exposure to nature, I think, is really important. Dogs need to get out in the dirt and the water and sand and whatever is available to them and just be outside rolling and stuff. Pollutants, obviously, that we're all exposed to every day, and chronic inflammation as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you gave us some examples of the types of foods that can lead to leaky gut.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about dried meals, aka kibble?
Yeah. So when it comes to kibble, one of the main questions I'm asked is which one would you recommend if you had to? And my primary concern with kibble is not what it's made of, it's how it's made. So when you cook foods at a very high temperature, there's something called the Maillard reaction, and that takes place. It actually modifies compounds within the food source to something that causes direct harm on the body. So downstream from the Maillard reaction is an increased consumption of something called an AGE, or an advanced glycation end product. These naturally will accumulate in the body over time. They weaken things like collagen, hence why people wrinkle as they age. They can impact eyesight, heart health, energy metabolism, all of those things. When you consume foods that are high in AGEs, you accelerate aging. Chronic inflammation is absolutely a side effect of high age consumption, which can sprinkle down into gut health concerns and damage, but it has a far more wider reaching implication for the rest of the body, not just the gut. I hope that answers the question, but that's my primary concern when it comes to feeding dry biscuits.
And mine too, which is why I wanted to go there. I mean, look, not to try and place guilt on pet mums that do feed kibble. People live in different circumstances and have different reasons. Me personally, no bag of kibble will enter my house. I don't feed it at all, but different people have different priorities, have different circumstances. So what I like to try and do where possible is simply meet people where they are. If they're not ready or for whatever reason can't stop feeding kibble, I will simply try and suggest that we at least cut it down as much as possible and we fill the space in that bowl with healthy, fresh, colourful fruits and veg, leafy greens, fresh meat, bones, all of those sorts of things. Because my philosophy is some fresh food is better than none at all.
Yeah,
but that's
absolutely. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but that's a really important point to try and get across. It's not about the quality or the actual ingredients so much that are inside the kibble, and this is what is quite tricky to get through to people at times. It doesn't matter if the bag says premium. It doesn't matter if it was recommended by a vet. It doesn't matter how amazing the ingredients may have been when they were fresh at the start of that process. It's the high temperatures and the processing that food goes through that causes part of the problem. I mean, at very least, you're losing a certain level of the nutritional benefits from those lovely ingredients that may have been there at the start, but secondary to that, you've got the level of inflammation that's caused in that dog's body from all of the high processing and the high temperatures, and that's something that you just can't get away from no matter how good the ingredients were to start with.
Yeah, that's right. And easily one of my favourite studies ever in the world of canine nutrition got published. It was just last year. It was one of the longest running canine nutrition studies that we have to date. It went for about 16 months. They compared the AGE concentration in the blood between senior dogs, a control group that was fed kibble and a control group that was fed fresh food. They put them both on the dry biscuits for 4 months to start with. Then the group that was fed or transitioned onto fresh food showed a reduction in AGE concentration within 30 days. So it only took 30 days for these senior dogs to show a measurable reduction in AGE exposure, which you could consider might slow down their aging, particularly if they are, senior, so that's probably 7 years plus. It only took 30 days for a fresh food diet to start showing beneficial results, which was incredibly fast.
Absolutely. There's a study at the other end of the spectrum that I like to reference quite often as well. Studies have shown that puppies that are weaned onto a fresh or a raw diet, even if that diet shifts when they go to their forever home at the 8 to 10 week mark, have got it was something near a 40% less chance of developing recurring skin problems and allergies through their entire adult life.
Yeah, I am familiar with that one, and that's a great one. I really enjoyed reading the results from that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one I've used a lot. As you know, I've got a puppy in the house. I had a litter in January of 10 little ones, and I raise them on raw. They're never given wheat or rice cereal, any of those sorts of things. When they first started eating on their own, it was raw goat's milk and beef.
Yeah, amazing.
And then slowly introducing the other nutrients and the fruits and the veggies over time. The other thing that I did was I included in everyone's puppy pack a copy of the Forever Dog book.
Yeah.
To try
Yeah,
and,
I've got that one. I really
as
like
well
it.
as giving them my own information pack, to try and get across to them, this is what I've done, this is what they've been weaned on, and this is why, and here's a blueprint for you, as they're moving on and as they're growing up, to keep them as happy and healthy as possible. I mean, look, I hope that more than not, stick with at least some portion of fresh food. But I feel like even if I've just weaned them on the best possible quality and the purest ingredients in those 8 weeks, I've at least done my bit to set their immune system up for life.
Yeah, absolutely. No, without a doubt. I just did a big collaboration with a Labrador retriever breeder, and I did about a 40-page document on nutrition that she'll send off with her new puppy owners. And it was very I really enjoyed learning specifically about Labrador retrievers and some of the food nutrition nuances of that breed. But yeah, it's interesting now. I'm just starting to get some feedback from some of the owners and some questions and stuff like that. So I have seen an increase in people being really curious, coming first thing with their puppies and like, what is the best thing I can give this dog? So there's definitely I've been in the industry for about 6 or 7 years. Recently, within the last probably 2 years, I've seen a massive shift in people saying, I have a puppy, what's the best thing I can do? Which is really nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely greater awareness out there. I mean, look, as an industry compared with other places like the US, Canada and the UK and even parts of Asia, Australia's still a little bit behind the ball, but we are slowly starting to catch up. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good thing that people are asking these questions. I mean, the reason for this podcast and the content that I do was so that when people had questions, they knew that there was a source that they could go to, which had, the right balance of information, which was being presented by people who are professionals in their field. So they know that they're not, being led astray or having to worry, okay, well, this person says this and who should I be listening to? It's just so easy for people to get confused out there who don't have that experience in the industry.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've noticed, very, very recently over in the US, Royal Canin just released a range of freshly cooked dog food. So
I did see
that while the formula is not quite as, bang on as I would like to see it, that's a really interesting acknowledgement. Exactly. It's a very interesting acknowledgement of their changing position. And I think to me, it's like they're just starting to yield and think, okay, maybe this is the direction we need to head, maybe to stay profitable, but also what research have they gathered, because they're a science-backed nutrition manufacturer, to show that this is a great diet to feed a dog. So I'd be really interested to see how their narrative shifts towards fresh food as well.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's vindication for a lot of us who've been screaming from the rooftops about fresh and raw feeding for years, and these brands kept saying no, 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 and all the fear mongering that was going on. Look, anything that's going to steer pet owners in the right direction, I say go for it. I'm all for it. It'll definitely be a really interesting watch this space. Also to see how long it takes for the other big brands to start to follow suit and where they go with it.
Yeah, exactly right. And because I think Hills a couple of years ago, unless I'm mistaken, they acquired Prime 100. So they own the Prime 100 fresh rolls and stuff like that now as well. Yep. So they are creeping into this space, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in it.
They've got some work to do. I mean, look, I'm not someone who's a big fan necessarily of the rolls as a daily feed. I do use them if I run out or if I'm going away and I need something easy that I can prepare for a dog sitter. They're great for that. It's not something I necessarily feed day to day. I prefer to feed fresh as much as possible and something that's as processed as little as possible, but it's absolutely a step in the right direction, and I would much rather see a dog eating that than eating biscuits out of a pack any day.
Yeah, most definitely. My husband's just got home, so I'm quite certain my dogs are about to bark, but we'll see how we go.
It's a dog podcast,
Yeah, exactly. They're going to get very excited in about 2 seconds.
I'll
let Maggie out for a run.
I was I was interviewing Rita Hogan a few months ago, and I had 10
That would be
puppies
great.
screaming in the background.
Excellent.
So don't stress.
Yeah, she would have been great to talk to.
She's absolutely lovely. She's the nicest lady. Her knowledge is off the charts. I actually did my, years and years ago, I did my herbalist certification with her. She's a fantastic facilitator and teacher, and she's just lovely. If we can get our schedules to align. Hello, puppy.
There's another one.
Say hi. If we
Hey,
can get our
Vicky.
schedules to line up, I'm hoping to get her back in the new year again. She was terrific.
Yeah, perfect. I'll definitely have a listen to that one.
Yeah, and you should come to Canine Masters in October if you can get down to Melbourne.
I am free in October. I'll have a little look.
Yes, I think it's the 31st from memory.
Mhm.
But that was how I first got in touch with Rita and met her and had a little chat with her. All of the speakers were amazing. Fantastic event, but also really good just for networking and just so great to just be in a room with so many like-minded people who really get it and are all trying to essentially do the same thing.
Yes, yeah. I do get a little bit lonely up here sometimes.
I imagine you would. I mean, I'm only 2 hours out of Melbourne, but it's very much farms and very, shall we say, old school style of pet care and feeding. So quite often I'll have to drive an hour plus to get what I need, being a raw feeder, because we're a rare breed up here.
Wow.
But yeah, that's
very tricky to get. I always, when it comes to manufacturing your own raw food, even like I live in a very populated area, and I find that when I help customers formulate raw diets and give them recipes and stuff to follow, they find it so difficult to find everything they need, particularly the organ meats, because a lot of butchers obviously just put them straight into their sausages. It's very hard to get the sufficient organ meats.
I have exactly the same problem. I get what I can from the supermarket, but it's very, very limited. It's very hard to get much variation from chicken, which is not ideal. I mean, not to bash chicken, but you know, as a nutritionist, you want different meat sources, and chicken's not always the strongest. Occasionally you'll get lamb's fry, but it's few and far between. So what I do instead of treats, because we don't feed schmackos and processed treats in this household, it's either whole foods and fruits, or I will actually buy freeze-dried organs and use them as treats. So it's not as good as fresh, but at least they're still getting some organs that way when I can't get fresh. They're getting, they're getting liver and they're getting heart and kidney and different things.
Yeah, absolutely. All the important stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So we've talked about what leaky gut is and what the microbiome is. We've talked about some of the symptoms to look for and some of the causes, and we talk about some of the things that people can do. I mean, obviously feeding fresh is the ultimate, but a hard switch from A to B is not going to be practical for everyone. What are maybe some smaller steps that people can start with?
Yeah, so at the very least, try feeding more diversity. So you're looking at different colourful fruit and vegetables instead of, I know a lot of people, there's a huge thing with home cooked diets or home prepared diets, rice and veggies. Rice aside, just completely get rid of that. But the vegetables that people are adding need to be what I would consider to be functional for a dog. And that includes things like, or it excludes things, I should say, like the little pea and corn microwave bags that you can get in the frozen section of the supermarket.
Absolutely
Probably
useless.
Not. Yeah. So you're looking at things like, I really like to recommend pumpkin, zucchini, broccoli, carrot, smaller amounts of things like capsicum. Dogs love cucumber, a little bit of celery with some smear of peanut butter, all of that kind of stuff is fine. But you want really colourful things. I love telling people to feed their dogs berries in any shape or form. And then if you're making a smoothie or something like that and you're putting a banana in it, share the banana. Green bananas, amazing. But you're looking at changing up your fibre, adding some safe herbs, berries being your polyphenol-rich foods, colourful berries and decaffeinated green tea, high in polyphenols. Both of those things help reduce systemic inflammation. But the thing that I want people to remember is diversity will feed diversity. The different species of bacteria and stuff that need to colonize in that gut they all have different jobs. And to do their jobs, they all need to be fueled by different sources. So if you only feed kibble, you will only feed the bacteria that can thrive on kibble. If you only feed one species of one species of vegetable or type of vegetable, you're only feeding the bacteria that can eat that, and you're neglecting to feed the diversity. So mix it up. Seasonal fruits and vegetables, different all the time. See what your dog likes. Mash them all up, blend them all up, whatever you need to do, and then just squeeze them into cubes. Have them stored. Make it easy for yourself so you don't have to prepare something fresh every night, but just keep it different as much as you can.
Yep, absolutely. Look for the specials at the end of the
Yes.
week at the supermarket, or keep aside a little bit of what you're making for yourself. If I'm cooking, anything that has their favourites, pumpkin, sweet potato, carrot, any of those sorts of things, before I finish making my meal, I'll keep a little bit aside and mix it up in theirs, just so that they're getting that variety. I like to do raw eggs and sardines a few times a week each as well.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it keeps them from getting bored too.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like fermented foods like kefir, little bit of yogurt, those kind of things. You can smear it on a licky mat, mash up some blueberries and stuff like that. Dogs really enjoy it. You don't have to worry too much about lactose when it comes to fermented foods. Obviously, you're not going to pour them a cup of milk and let them drink that. But those two, really natural plain Greek yogurt and good quality kefir, dogs go nuts for it. You can freeze them into ice cubes again. Blend them with some fruit.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Mine get a 50-cent piece size dollop on every meal. I do bone broth every day as well, because that's supporting your gut health too. But what's really great, I love for the summertime, I keep my ice cube trays. I rarely use them. They're for the dogs, and I will pop in the Greek yogurt, the kefir. I will mush up some berries, or I'll mush up some banana or some pumpkin or whatever I've got, and just keep those in the freezer. They absolutely love it on a hot day, and there's nothing processed. You know exactly what's in it.
Yeah. And if I want to be extra special for my dogs, I actually get all of the ends. If I'm chopping up a whole bunch of veggies, I'll keep the pieces that I'm not really going to eat, like the tops of the carrots, the stalk of the broccoli. I just throw it in the NutriBullet, blend it up with a little bit of water most of the time, or bone broth, and I pour that on top of the food. And I have no waste. They love it. And it's exactly what they need to feed the microbes, not the dog.
It's so healthy, and it's so easy. And look, I know that a lot of people, especially in this climate, are put off when they look at the prices for a lot of prepackaged and pre-blended raw foods, but there are cheaper ways that you can do it. I mean, if there's a chicken farm or a turkey farm or a really good butcher near you, I mean, there's so much you can do. I mean, I'm lucky that my dogs are okay to eat chicken. While I don't just feed them chicken, definitely not. I can get a really good source of cheap mince that way. I pay $1.50 a kilo, but just by buying 10 kilos at a time, and use that as a base. I don't have time to do everything myself every day, so I do a little bit of a cheat and use either a Fuds or a Vets All Natural mix, which you just soak with the kettle to give them a nutritional base, and mix that with the meat. But then I'm adding different minces and different cuts of meat more days than not. They're getting necks, they're getting different types of bone, whether it's roux legs, they're getting beef brisket bones and those sorts of things 2 to 3 times a week. And then I'm adding other bits and pieces as well, either for snacks or just for variation to their meal. They'll get sardines a few times a week, they'll get raw eggs, they'll get different fruit and veggies. But I'm not spending a fortune. I'm using what I've already got or what's on special. And I've got 3 medium-sized dogs. They can eat a bit, but we seem to manage pretty well.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. And even if people are buying a pre-made food, in my shop, I have just muscle meat, organ and bone mixes. So there is room to feed less of that. Add your fruit and vegetables and stuff like that. Create mixes and once a week at home, freeze them in the freezer and just serve those on top. Or you're adding, nice and fresh sardines a couple of times a week, when grabbing them when they're on special at Coles or Woolies. There is a lot of ways to reduce the cost of fresh food, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, look, if I could, there are so many great pre-made blends now. If I could afford to feed 3, dogs on them, I absolutely would. It would save me so much time and money. But doing it this way, as I have done for years and years, I mean, that they couldn't be any healthier.
Yeah. And it's working for you and your group, so keep going.
Yep, absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to tell dog mums out there who might be looking for some answers or looking for a number one tip? Or
the one thing that I would say, even though like the study that I mentioned earlier is super promising, that there was measurable difference in 30 days. But the one thing I would say is you have to set realistic expectations when you shift from a dry biscuit or a processed diet to fresh food to what timeline you're looking at to see a result.
Mm.
And it might not be the switch you make at that time, might not be the silver bullet for your dog's issues. So
No.
a lot of people, I think, is particularly with the yeast die-off and the flare-up that it can have when you start to starve it out, a lot of people start to transition to fresh food and they panic because they think, oh, one, it's not working. It's been 2 weeks and my dog's not better. Or two, they see that massive yeast flare-up and they think my dog's allergic to this food.
Yeah. Yeah, but
So
sometimes the symptoms worsen before they get better.
absolutely, yes. So I would say, the one thing I would say is just to set a completely realistic expectation. So the gut microbes will begin changing within a few days, but it might take 6 to 12 weeks for you to see a result on the skin. Something that's been a chronic allergy that your dog's been on prescription medication for quite a few years, that can take
And
a
you're
couple of
talking
months.
months, not weeks.
Yes, definitely. You might see the first thing that I get feedback and people say, my dog's stool volume went right down. They don't seem to be pooing enough. That's probably the first thing you'll notice, and that's a good sign because the food is more bioavailable. There's less waste. You're not paying for a really expensive poo.
It's more nutrient rich.
That's right. So the stool volume will go down. You might start to see improvements in a bit of improvement in vitality within that 2 to 4 week period. But these really hard set chronic conditions can take a good few months to get on top of. And I don't want people to transition and get disheartened when it doesn't work in a time frame that they've set. That's too short.
Yeah. It's very, very true. That's the key, is to be patient.
Yeah.
And to stick with it, because it does take time, unfortunately.
It does.
And you may still need to look at to look at other things to resolve a problem that's been there longer term. I mean, fixing the diet is definitely a step in the right direction, but they may need some additional support, whether that's supplements or talking to a natural health practitioner, depending on what the issue is. But yeah, patience, definitely.
Yeah, and there are a couple of companies online, and I urge that they do their research and stuff like that. There are a couple of companies online where you can send your dog's stool sample away, and they'll give you a complete microbiome analysis based off your dog's stool, whether or not they have overgrowth of parasites, fungi, bacteria, if they have high inflammatory markers and stuff like that. So there are a few companies that can help give you a lot more insight when your dog's condition is very stubborn.
Definitely. No, it's definitely worth looking at. The other one that I've used quite a bit, not exactly the same insights, but hair mineral analysis I've done before as well, and sent that off and gotten a really good breakdown in terms of where organs like the liver were sitting, in terms of any nutritional deficiencies that needed topping up, and a personalised plan, either with a couple of natural supplements to level things out, or with a couple of recipes to help support what's going on with their body at the time. And I've found that really quite helpful as well.
Yeah, great. I haven't done one of those myself, but they're definitely a very interesting thing to consider.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. The lady that I work with, Ellie, she actually spent a small fortune on this whiz-bang machine from Germany. She brought it with her when she migrated to Australia from Poland, and she's a vet nurse and a nutritionist.
Okay.
And yeah, it's really interesting stuff. The level of insight that she will get inside your dog's body, and the really targeted advice and support that you can get from that one simple test. And you don't need to physically be there. You just cut a little piece of your dog's hair and pop it in the post. It's that simple.
Yeah, well, yep.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, great. If there's so much available now that we can just use to get so much more insight and more depth, so you're not just throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks. You can get exactly what you need, to address the concern.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's just, I mean, it's invaluable to someone who doesn't have the training, or particularly if someone is a first-time dog parent, or they haven't had a puppy in 20 years and everything's changed. They don't know where to start. I mean, it's a huge help. It's a huge confidence builder.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
I could talk for hours, but I'm sure that you've got other things to do, as do I. Thank you so much. It's been so great chatting with you.
Yeah, I'm sorry it took so long to get around to it, but we
No. It's look, life happens. I've had one of those years myself. Yeah, but I would love to have you back again. The amount of knowledge just sitting in your brain. Yeah.
Yeah, it needs somewhere to spill out of.
Yeah, exactly. And where better to do it than in a way where you can be helping other dog mums, you know?
Yeah,
That
absolutely. No, I appreciate it.
That's how this whole thing started. It was me having hour-long chats on the phone with other pet business owners I knew, and I wish people knew this and I wish people knew that, and have you seen that study? And it just dawned on me one day, we really should record this because I think people
Yeah,
might learn something.
no,
That was how it
absolutely. No,
started.
yeah, no, it's a great idea. Yeah, very brave. I don't know if I could.
Well, it took me 2 years to actually do it, you know, so
No, but it's
yeah.
all going well.
That's okay. That's all right. The main thing is getting the information out there to the people that need it. So I've started a little free Facebook community as well. It's very, very small at the moment. It's going to be a slow burn, but I'm hoping that over time that will evolve and that will be another, not just source for information, but place where people can talk about their experience. We can do live Q&As and different things as it grows.
Yeah,
So
those things will snowball. Yeah,
yeah. We'll see how that goes.
sounds good.
All righty. Well, you take care, cuddle those babies, and
I
I
will.
look
Thank
forward to
you.
catching up again sometime soon.